Welcome back to MVM. Today we're bringing you a look at the Stuff of Legend, the board game coming from 3WS. This is a game that's based on the graphic novel series. For those who have no idea, this is a popular graphic novel about a kid that gets kidnapped by the boogeyman and the stuffed animals and toys that come alive in order to follow into the dark closet and rescue the boy. This game follows that premise and starts at that moment that the boy is kidnapped. Each player is going to take on the role of one of these toys who are kind of working together in order to rescue the boy. I do want to say kind of working together because there is a hidden traitor element to this game. One or more of the players might be secretly working for the boogeyman, either because the boogeyman has some dirt on them or some blackmail on them, or just because they're not good toys and they want to see the boogeyman win. So we'll talk about how that works, but just know that this game is mostly cooperative and plays in about an hour or two if you're a skilled group of players. Now I've got the board already laid out here in front of me. You're going to see a variety of minis and standees. The minis represent a lot of the board elements. The standees represent the characters. This is of course a prototype. It's coming to crowdfunding, so nothing you see in front of you is exactly final, but it does look pretty good. I mean, this map looks really well done and all the pieces look really high quality. So we've got a few pieces that we're going to have to put out. The first being the boogeyman marker. This marks the boogeyman's attention on the characters. The more attention they have, the more troops that the boogeyman is going to send after them. Then you've got the boy marker. This determines how close the boy is to being lost. If the boy is ever lost, the boogeyman wins. And you're going to set this counter based on the number of players. If it ever drops down to the bottom of the track, then it's too bad. You're also going to have the player marker. This represents the current location of the players. You're going to start in Brooklyn, which is where the action of the game begins. Then you've got a wound track marker here, which you're going to place out. This will track your wounds. Every time you take a certain number of wounds, you'll have to flip this coin. Now there are two faces to this coin, the revenge side and the boy side. Whenever you flip it, anytime for the wound track or because another aspect of the game tells you to, if you ever show the head of the boy, you have to move the boy one space down on that track, which can be pretty bad. So you're going to set that off to the side for now. You're also going to take the hero board. This is going to track the actions of the different heroes, and each player is going to have their own character sheet. These sheets are going to give you a special kind of asymmetric ability for your character. It's also going to give you some kind of asymmetric penalty as well. You'll also have some icons down at the bottom that represent the skills that you're good at. This is important because you're going to encounter challenges and obstacles that you have to surpass over the course of the game. And you're going to do that through the use of action cards. Each player is going to be dealt a hand of action cards to start the game off, and then you're going to make a deck here for players to draw from. Now these action cards can do a variety of things. They can contribute to skill tests. You're going to see the same icons that are on the player boards are also represented on these cards. When it comes time, you'll be able to play these cards to add to the symbols that you already have. You're also going to have some cards that just do specific actions like taking out enemies on the board or interacting with the board state in various ways, or you can just discard cards to just take basic actions, which I'll talk about. You're also going to take each player's standee and hand them out. These are not actually going to go on the board. Your character is never going to have its own specific location on the board. You're always represented by where the party is. However, this character token is going to be used to track who has taken actions. If you take an action, you're going to place your character down on the action space. And then these characters are going to get exhausted, allowing for other characters to come in and take their actions. So everybody's going to get the chance to act before somebody can come back and take their action again. Now the actions you're taking are pretty simple. Like I said, you're either taking a basic action or you're using the action that's on one of your cards. The basic actions are just to move across the board to a different location or to hide, which is going to reduce the attention that the boogeyman gives you. So the hide action is good, but you are wasting a move. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, and I'll talk about why in a second. But it's important to note that when you move, you're going to have to deal with some kind of encounter. You're going to have a deck of these encounter cards that are color-coded to match the different symbols on the board. During setup, you're going to seed the board with encounter cards that match these colors. And you're actually going to give 2 cards or more to each location. Now in an actual game, these cards are all face down. I'm going to flip some face up for explanation purposes. Now you might notice that some of these encounter spaces have symbols next to them. Some of these symbols, like the plus sign, just mean that they're dealt an extra encounter card at setup. So you're going to actually have 3 encounters there instead of 2. And then the troop symbols mean that those locations are going to start with a troop. These troops are going to be spread out on the board, and their goal is to slow down your actions. If there is a troop present, you cannot take one of those basic actions. You have to play a card to deal with these troops before you can move on. Now, all of these encounter cards are not bad. Some of them are going to give you obstacles that you have to pass with those skill tests like I talked about, where you're playing cards from your hand in order to beat that particular encounter, adding the symbols from your cards to the symbols from your character sheet, and allowing other players to assist you. Other players can play cards from their hand as well that match those symbols in order to help you move past that encounter. But some of them are just going to offer you boons. Some of them are going to give you allies, which will stay in play and give you some kind of buff, and some of them might bring in these leader tokens. Leaders are going to serve the boogeyman and basically follow you around, making your life difficult until you can deal with them. Now, the goal of the game is to move to one of these black hole spots. These represent the exits of the game. However, there's a caveat here. There are 7 exit tokens, and they are shuffled randomly during setup. On one side is a black hole, and then the other side is a number. You're trying to figure out which of these exits the boogeyman has taken the boy through. You need to find the correct exit if you want to win. And the correct exit is the one with the highest number. Now, these go all the way up to 7. Again, there's a little trick here. If you find 7 and you think, oh, well, this is the exit, it's got to be the highest number, you're not right. Because if the 7 and the 1 are both on the board, then it's actually the 1 that becomes the correct exit. And they do that so you can't just have a lucky draw and flip over the 7 and say, well, that's obviously the highest. You still need to do some investigative work and see if there's a number 1 out there somewhere on the board. Now, if you have a number like a 5 or a 6 and you don't know if the 7's there, you can end up in a situation where you have to gamble. Maybe you just hope and you go through that anyway because you assume, well, maybe there's no 7. We haven't found a 7. 6 might be the highest. You're either right or you're wrong. If you go through the correct door and you follow the boogeyman, then the heroes win and all the toys that were loyal to the boy celebrate. However, if you fail to find the right door, if you go through the wrong door, then it's game over. The boy loses, he is lost to the boogeyman, and everyone loyal to the boogeyman at the table wins. So you're going to be placing these tokens out randomly. Now, there are some actions and some encounters and things you can do during the game that are going to allow you to peek at these so you'll start to get an idea of what they're going to be before you actually have to exit. All the rest of the tokens that you don't place on the board are set aside. You don't ever get to know what those are. So that's kind of a secret thing. Now, it might seem simple enough. You're going to have a few puzzles to solve. You're going to have some decisions to make in order to find the right exit. And you're going to work together and you're going to defeat the boogeyman. But there are a few things that are going to complicate your plan. The first of which being the Boogeyman deck. This is going to be a collection of cards that favor the boogeyman. These are going to come out in a variety of different ways, but when they do, they're going to either have a one-time effect that's going to help the boogeyman hurt the team, or they're going to trigger a Sinister Games card, which is going to come and sit and play and have some kind of global effect until another one of those cards are drawn. But the real crux of the game, the real wrench, is these loyalty cards. And I haven't talked about this yet because this is kind of the real meat of the game. Everything you're doing in the game is informed by these loyalty cards. You're going to have some loyalty cards that are loyal to the boy. You're going to have some loyalty cards that are loyal to the boogeyman. And then you're going to have some cards that are special abilities like Scout's Friend and the Colonel's Heir. These are going to be one-time use cards that can be revealed and give you some kind of bonus to help the boy out. Once those are revealed, then it's pretty obvious who you are. Now, again, it might seem pretty simple. You build up the deck, you deal the cards, and then you know if you're loyal to the boy or you're loyal to the boogeyman. And then that's going to inform the way that you play the game. If you're loyal to the boogeyman, you want to just push to the end game, make sure that the boy is lost, and confuse the party as best as possible. Okay, but there's a caveat to that. Because your loyalty cards can swap. Other players can switch cards with you by playing action cards or force you to switch your card with the deck, or you can even switch your card if you don't like the team you're on. What this means is you don't want to loudly announce, hey, I'm on the Boogeyman team, let's go for a Boogeyman Victory. Because if you're very close to a Boogeyman Victory and other players at the table know you're a Boogeyman, they're probably going to play their swap card to swap with you, and now you're on the boys' team, they win, you lose. So the key here is to kind of walk the middle, see how things are going. If it becomes very clear that your side is not going to win, then you may want to consider switching. Try to find a switch card, switch with somebody that's on the boys' side or you think is on the boys' side, and then you'll be on the victorious team. However, fortunes in this game can switch pretty quickly. It might look like the Boogeyman is going to win, his attention level is very high, but then all the players rally together and knock that attention level down. Because other players might just use their actions to hide and just keep moving down that attention level. In fact, if you don't use your action to hide, then it becomes kind of suspicious that maybe you're on the Boogeyman's team. But there's another element here why these loyalty cards matter. When you're using your basic action to move, it's not just as simple as moving. You're going to see all of these paths across the board. Some of them are black dots, some of them are red, and some of them are green. The red paths are the worst. They're actually going to increase the Boogeyman's attention, and the green paths are quiet. They're actually going to lower the Boogeyman's attention. You're sneaking around. When you're taking these paths, you need to take that into account. You might actually want to increase the attention level by taking a red path, but you're going to play it off like, oh, well, I need that encounter card, and that's a really good encounter card. Or maybe it actually is. Maybe it's an ally. But whenever you declare a move, every player at the table gets to vote on whether they agree with that move or not. If everyone agrees or the majority agrees, then you get to make your move. But if players don't agree, then you don't move, you waste your action. So you want to make sure that you're not drawing suspicion onto yourself. That's another reason why you don't want to announce that you're the Boogeyman player, because people would just say no to your movements unless they really think it's going to also help them. But you don't want to just say no to everyone because you're on a timer. The Boogeyman is going to be stealing that boy away, and eventually the boy will hit that boy is lost section of the board, and then it's game over anyway. So you need to take actions. You can't just block everyone's moves all the time, but you need to be strategic about the way you vote. You need to be strategic about your actions, because sometimes these encounter cards are really bad, but you have to trigger them in order to get where you're going, or you're just trying to trigger them because it's good for the Boogeyman. It's a whole meta that's happening at the table of social deduction, of everyone looking around and trying to figure out if your movements and actions are better for the team or if they are secretly helping the Boogeyman. Because after all three heroes get to go, their heroes will go to the exhausted pool to leave room for the next set of heroes, and then the Boogeyman will get to go. The Boogeyman is going to trigger everything on the board within its attention level radius. This is determining how much the Boogeyman is actually looking for you. If he's 1, then every enemy is only looking 1 space away. If he's all the way up to 3, then every enemy is looking 3 spaces away, which means they're seeing you almost anywhere you are on the board. The Boogeyman's attention level also determines how tough these troops are, how much hit points they have. But when you're moving around the board and your turn ends and it's the Boogeyman's turn, each card that has an effect, some cards will actually trigger during the Boogeyman phase, and each troop is going to look and see how many spaces they are away. If they can see you within that attention level, they're going to be moving towards you. And this is bad because these troops can cause damage to you, and some of the card effects can cause damage to you. Every time you take a wound, you're moving this wound token 1 step closer to the coin flip. And of course, every time you flip the coin, it could land on the boy head side, which is going to move the boy 1 space down. There's also other effects that might do the same thing. So moving the boy down this time track is bad. You're going to notice that eventually you'll have lower hand size. You'll have less actions and less things you can do on your turn until eventually the boy is lost. When this boy gets down pretty low, you know it's time to really need to focus on working together and finding that exit. This is also important why you want to manage these encounter cards, because you want to clear out these negative encounter cards as fast as possible, especially the ones that have an effect on the Boogeyman's turn, because you're only getting 3 actions before the Boogeyman acts. And you need to use those 3 actions as smart as possible if you want to try to clear out this board, clearing out the troops, clearing out the encounter cards, hiding from the Boogeyman. There's a lot of things that you want to do, and when you have conflicting agendas like this, players that are just making really dumb decisions, they might not really be making dumb decisions. They might be playing a subtle game here where they're working for the Boogeyman. So it's up to you to try to figure that out. So all of these layers are being added on together while you're playing this game. So there is just a whole element of player cooperation and social deduction that's going to make this game very different every single time you play. So that is a look at the Stuff of Legend. This game is coming to crowdfunding soon, so you'll be able to see what all the final components are going to look like, as well as any kind of stretch goals or anything that they might have in store for us. I don't actually know. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And as always, please let me know in the comments whether or not you've read this graphic novel, what you're most excited about, who you want to play as, and also just your thoughts on the game. I'd love to hear them. So please do that. And as always, thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, and following us here at MVM. And until I see you next time, have fun at the table.
Now, before you go, there's one more thing I want to talk about. I hate to bring this up, but YouTube analytics tells us to do this. So please click on the subscription button, ring the bell, watch our next video, Rinse and repeat. Just keep doing that over and over and over and over.